Hello, I'm Marty Bird. We'll have a complete wrap-up of our 76th Annual State Convention.
Hello, I'm Joel Reuter. Delegates have adopted new policies which will be taken to the State House this month.
Welcome to Indiana Farm Bureau's 76th Annual Meeting.
Indiana Farm Bureau's 76th Annual Meeting sets the stage for a new year in agriculture. Counties were named for outstanding efforts in membership and leadership. From entertaining speakers like Captain Stubby.
You know, back in the old days during the Depression, I grew up in the 20s and the 30s on a farm up here in Cass County. My gosh, my dad now, he didn't go broke though in 1929. He saw it coming. He went broke in 28.
To sobering messages from private property rights champions. Logger Bruce Vincent spoke of horror stories about the Endangered Species Act and how it impacted his small town.
The message from that federal agent was, there is no way that agency would attempt the type of insanity they were trying in Libby, Montana, in an urban setting that they thought had the political wherewithal to fight back. There is no way they would attempt to implement an insane program in an urban setting that they thought could bite them. But they were more than willing to do it in a town like Libby, Montana, a rural area that they didn't think could fight back.
Leadership and direction of Farm Bureau was outlined in the President's address. Harry Pearson says Farm Bureau will assist farmers in legal battles.
As of today, as of this morning, each Farm Bureau Rural Guardian farm policy will automatically be endorsed with a $1,000 rider to be used for legal expenses involving federal or state agencies who have taken action against that policyholder. This coverage will pay 80% up to a maximum payment of $1,000 that policyholder makes out of his pocket for any actions relating to environmental regulations or contingent farm labor matters.
And the winner is Kevin Cox.
Winners of the Discussion Meet and Achievement Award follow delegates to the National Convention in St. Louis this month.
Speaking up for agriculture was the theme of the convention. A prominent voice for Hoosier farmers, U.S. Senator Richard Lugar, outlined challenges ahead for the new Congress and agriculture in '95. He says there will be a complete analysis of USDA, current farm programs, and a new federal farm policy.
Now, after all of that, I'll be responsible for drafting a bill, which I will do. Now, other members of the committee may say we don't like your bill at all. We have another one. And it's a democracy, and some will say we like parts of it, don't like others. Some of the bill will probably be taken by general acceptance, and other parts we will debate in the markups and eventually on the floor. But throughout all of this will be an educational period that I think will be extensive.
Lugar will be a leader in farm policy debate. He will most likely be appointed chair of the Senate Ag Committee in the new Republican-controlled Congress. During the last order of business, Congress passed a landmark trade accord. GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, will set a new direction for international commerce. One Indiana commodity which will benefit from GATT is turkey production. Martin County producer Dan Gregory believes more trade provides a new frontier in marketing his product.
Trade is really what we do. We take things that we have and trade them for things that they have. And it's very important, I think, to American agriculture that these agreements get in place that we can trade freely across borders.
Farm Bureau supported GATT. The agreement received bipartisan assistance in the House and Senate. Again, Senator Lugar.
But every time a change is made to lower a tariff or non-tariff barrier, we have greater openings for American agriculture in 140 countries all over the world. Already we know the dynamics of the NAFTA process are working far better than any of us could have prophesied. We had good figures, I thought, from Purdue with regard to this state, and I'm indebted again to economists there who estimated we would have $100 million of new income in Indiana alone in NAFTA in the first year, and we exceeded that very rapidly.
AFBF estimates GATT will help boost U.S. net farm income by more than $1 billion a year. Countries have 6 years to fully adopt the agreement, which will reduce tariffs and other trade barriers during that time period.
More USDA field offices are scheduled to close. In addition to the target of a one-stop shopping approach for farmers, outgoing Ag Secretary Mike Espy says the agency will slash paperwork and tedious, often duplicative form filling. These Indiana County offices are scheduled to consolidate. Perry, serviced by Spencer County, Vermilion, serviced by Park County, Union to Fayette County, Porter by Lake County, Martin, serviced by Davies County, Crawford and Floyd to Harrison County. In addition, USDA will evaluate the locations of the following. Brown and Owen will be serviced by Monroe County. LaGrange will be serviced by Noble County. The closings and relocations will not be fully developed for months, if not longer, according to State Ag Department officials.
The hunt for Mike Espy's replacement took several weeks longer than previously expected. Espy resigned after an ethics investigation, which continues. Indiana Farm Bureau, AFBF, and several ag groups threw support to former 4th District Congresswoman Jill Long. During the convention, Long thanked Farm Bureau for its support.
And this is a very quality organization. It's not just large. It stands for fiscal responsibility and opening up markets. And I feel very, very honored that the Farm Bureau has been as supportive of me as the Farm Bureau has been. I feel very fortunate to have the kind of working relationship and friendship with the Farm Bureau.
It appears the new Secretary of Agriculture will be Congressman Dan Glickman, a Democrat from Kansas, who lost a re-election bid. Glickman has extensive experience with farm programs and other agricultural issues by virtue of his membership on the House Agriculture Committee.
This is a remarkable publication. It would not have occurred without the foresight of Farm Bureau. It's not appeared elsewhere that I know of in America, and it's certainly not available to Indiana farmers.
The book is very comprehensive, it's well written, and easy to understand. In fact, it literally took hundreds of hours, and I really should say thousands of hours, were spent in translating legal terminology and federal and state regulations into a practical, easy-to-read manual that I think will be very useful in your farming operation. I know we're going to have one on our farm.
Farm Bureau lobbyists head back to the State House this month to tackle issues set by delegates at the convention. The state budget for the 95-97 biennium will command most of the attention, says State Legislative Department Director Bob Kraft.
The whole idea of fiscal responsibility, anything that will reduce the burden of fiscal support from property taxes and move it to another form of tax, or put any controls on expenditures either by county governments or by schools or by the state government, are all things that have been supported in principle by our delegates, and we will look at specific pieces of legislation that address those.
Another charge will spark legislation for a grain insurance fund. Delegates supported the fund last year. After a summer review committee examined the issue and passed it through as policy, Kraft says establishing a grain insurance fund will be a Farm Bureau priority this year.
The timing of our convention is a little bit too close to the beginning of the legislative session to really run with it immediately. We've had a year to think it over. It was massaged by the Field Crops Committee. They did a real good job of putting some elements of a grain insurance program together, and that was endorsed by the delegates this morning. So I think that will be one of our primary priorities at the State House this upcoming year.
Talk about realigning Indiana's fence law has been scrapped. This action comes as the result of county policies submitted to the Resolutions Committee and a vote during the business session. Farm Bureau will not seek to change the current fence law.
The committee that studied the fence law this summer recommended that it be changed. The resolutions that came in from the counties and the resolutions committee, after evaluating those recommendations, decided to recommend that we continue our long-standing policy of supporting Indiana's fence law as it is. The fence law committee had recommended that the policy be changed to a position of if you want the fence, you build it. But that will not be the case. We will not be pursuing a change in Indiana's fence law.
And finally, there will be an effort to adapt daylight savings time in that portion of Indiana in the Eastern time zone. Farm Bureau policy is very direct in its opposition to daylight savings time.
We anticipate that that will be a high visibility issue, and we will have very clear marching orders coming out of the delegate session today that the Indiana Farm Bureau remains opposed to the observation of daylight savings time in that part of Indiana in the Eastern time zone.
We'll keep you posted on some of the major issues from the State House in next month's program.
Media training workshops in the Western Districts begin February 1st. Topics covered in the workshops include writing news releases, writing letters to the editor, and on-camera interviews. Dates and locations follow.
Younger farmers around the state will be heading to a leadership conference at the end of the month. The two-day activity will be packed with interesting seminars. One, titled There is More Than Corn and Hogs in Indiana, will be hosted by Ted and Dana Huber, one of our State Young Farmer Achievement Award finalists.
We're talking about alternative agricultural products that can be produced in the state of Indiana. Apples for general, and we can talk about those. We're going to talk about the Christmas trees. We're going to talk about retailing pumpkins on-site retail markets.
The Hubers own and operate an orchard and winery in Clark County, just north of Louisville. As we close our program, more scenes from the 76th annual meeting. We'll see you next month.